yogis, welcome. Let's start today's flow in child's pose with knees spread wide and toes together. Stretch your arms actively forward and root your palms to the mat. Let your head hang heavy and start to deepen your breath, expanding through each inhale and emptying fully with each exhale. Inhale to send breath to the diaphragm. And as you exhale, we'll slowly start to walk the hands in toward us so we can sit up, rounding the upper back like a cat pose, drawing some space between the shoulder blades. Once you're up, you can inhale to sweep the arms up overhead. And exhale, hands to heart center, bowing your head to seal an intention for your practice, something that really resonates with you in the present moment. Release hands, and let's get ourselves set up for frog pose. You might spread out a blanket to cushion your knees, or you could just pivot to face the long edge of your mat. When you're ready, we'll send the knees wide. Come down to forearms. Your feet can be as wide as the knees, or maybe a little bit wider with heels pointing in and toes pointing out. Let's rock back and forth slowly to lubricate the hip joints. And when you're ready, you can settle into the pose. Maybe reaching the arms forward and lowering the chest to the mat. Keep breathing deeply to help the hips open up. Now let's walk the hands in and rise up, bringing knees together for a tabletop pose. We'll lift the right leg behind us and bend that knee. And then we can start to draw circles with the knee, squeezing the knee up towards the core as you draw it towards the right tricep. Inhaling to send the leg back. After 4 circles, you can go ahead and draw your knee in the opposite direction, really waking the glutes up. Let's lower the right knee. Wag the tail to clear this out. Now let's lift the left leg and keep that knee bent as we draw 4 circles forward, followed by 4 circles back. Aiming to isolate the hip as much as possible. Synchronize the movement with your breath. Lower that knee and we'll sway hips side to side to stay loose. Then get centered and send the right leg straight behind you, flexing the foot. Now we'll draw circles behind us with the heel 4 times in each direction again. Try to point your toes down to the ground to really turn on the inner leg muscles. Let's lower right knee to the mat and wag the tail. And then we'll switch legs, sending the left leg straight behind us, flexing the foot, and drawing circles with the heel 4 times clockwise, 4 times counterclockwise. Let's come back to tabletop and rock hips side to side. Now we'll inhale to stretch the right leg back again, but this time we'll dig the toes in and push back through both palms to really open up the calf muscles. You can pulse with this or make the pose static once you find your depth. Breathe into the back of the leg. Now let's come back to tabletop and switch legs, tucking the left toes far behind us, pushing through both arms to find that opening in the back of the leg. Option 2, pulse with this, or settle into some stillness. Let's inhale back to tabletop and exhale to get centered. With your next inhale, let's arch the spine in cow pose, pointing the sits bones high. Then exhale to round the back in cat pose, emptying the belly. Inhale to cow, gazing up. And exhale to cat, squeezing the seat. Inhale again to cow, but this time add a scorpion tail, right toes reaching for the head. Exhale to cat, squeezing the right knee to nose. One more time just like that, firing on the hamstrings. We'll return to tabletop. Wag the tail left and right. And switch legs now. Inhaling to send the left leg high. Exhaling to draw the knee to nose. One more round just like that. Being careful not to shortchange yourself with breath. Let's lower the left knee now. Rock the hips one more time. And sit back on the heels, moving aside any props you might have been using. Let's come back to child's pose now, just briefly. And we'll tuck toes, plant hands, and send the hips high for downward facing dog. You can bend into the knees one at a time, finding some length wherever you can. And keep plugging your fingertips into the mat to stay strong through the shoulders. Find your center and settle in. Now let's inhale the heels up, and we'll take a tiptoe walk to the top of the mat. Keep pouring weight into your hands, and squeeze your core right up until you land in a halfway lift. Exhale to empty the belly, folding deeply. And inhale to halfway lift again, coming to fingertips. Let's anchor the fingers and then lift the toes, sending weight into your heels. You should feel this as a deep opener for the hamstrings. If it feels unsteady, you can always bring in some blocks or set yourself up near a wall for stability. Let's send the toes right and left, swiveling hips, still balancing on the heels. Inhale to center, and root toes back into the mat. Bring hands to shins and inhale to a flat back. Then exhale to fold forward, pouring weight into the toes. Inhale to rise all the way up, sweeping arms overhead. And exhale to land into Tadasana. Let's inhale the arms up again. And exhale to fold deeply. Inhale to lengthen your spine. And exhale to step the right foot way back, sinking hips into a low lunge. Shine your heart forward and start to pulse that right ankle, rocking forward and back, just to warm up the legs. And we'll exhale to straighten the left leg and fold over it in a pyramid pose. Option 2, flex the left foot and point the toes up. If you can, draw the forehead or nose to the knee, great. But if not, don't sweat it. Just breathe into the hamstrings. Inhaling, let's bend into the left knee again and drop the right knee to the mat for a low crescent lunge. First, we'll raise both arms overhead, sitting nice and tall. Then we can drop the left hand to the mat or to a block and tip over to the left, reaching the right arm across the ear line, drawing so much length through the right hip flexors and quads. Inhale to center your weight, and then exhale to twist the torso, hooking the right elbow outside the left knee. Look behind you and try to keep the chest lifted so the spine stays long in the twist. Now let's release and plant that right hand for a twisted dragon pose. Rolling onto the outer edge of left foot, we'll use the left hand to push that knee wide. You can gaze behind you and sink into the pose, or make it fluid, rocking side to side. Whatever feels right. If it's available to you, you might bend into that right knee and reach back to catch the foot with your left hand, adding a quad stretch. You can stay here if you like, or you might take the quad stretch deeper by centering your weight, drawing the left knee in and coming down to the right forearm. Gaze up to the sky to keep your collarbone nice and wide here. Let's release the right foot and shift the hips back for half Hanumanasana. We'll flex the left foot and fold over that leg, drawing the left hip back. Keep your breath deep and steady. Now as we rise up, let's pivot on that right knee to face the long edge of the mat and land in a sort of funky tabletop with the left leg extended out to the side. Rock back and forth for the left hip joint, rooting the outer edge of the left foot to the mat. Now we can inhale to rise up and windmill the arms to land in gate pose, with the left hand anchored on the left leg and the right arm reaching across the ear line. Inhale to expand through the side ribs. Exhale to release. And we'll come back to our low lunge. And then morph that into lizard pose, in whatever variation serves you best. I'll be rolling onto the outer edge of my left foot, sending the knee wide and coming down to forearms. You might stay up on hands or on blocks, or you could keep the left knee stacked over the ankle. Whatever your body's calling for today, let's lean into it. Now let's rise up and plant the hands. Tucking the right toes, we'll step right into three-legged dog, sending the left leg high behind us, just for the stretch of it. Then lower the left foot for downward dog. Inhale to lift the heels. And we'll take a tiptoe walk back to the top of the mat. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale to fold. Inhale, root to rise. And exhale to mountain pose. Again, let's inhale the arms up. Exhale to hinge at the hips and fold. Inhale to lengthen the spine. And exhale to step the left foot back for a lunge. Push through the left toes to rock back and forth, warming up the leg muscles. And stay broad through the shoulders. With your exhale, let's straighten the right leg and fold into a pyramid pose. Option 2, flex that right foot and lift the toes off the mat. Try to keep the hips square here and draw your belly in towards your thigh. Let's bend the right leg and drop the left knee for low crescent lunge. Inhaling to send the arms overhead. Now we'll release the right hand to the mat or to a block and tilt over to the right, reaching long through the left arm, sending breath to the hip flexors. Come back to center, and we'll move into a prayer twist now, hooking the left elbow outside the right knee. Inhale to create space, and exhale to deepen the twist. And if it's available, aim to center prayer hands right at the nook of your collarbone. Now release your twist. We'll point the right toes out slightly and roll onto the outer edge of that foot, pushing the knee away for twisted dragon. This is a great hip opener, but if you take the twist a little deeper, you should find some release for the low back as well. To add a quad stretch, let's bend the left knee and catch that foot in the right hand, kicking back into the palm. Option 2, find an even deeper quad stretch by coming down onto the left forearm with the right knee stacked over the ankle. Wherever you are, just try to stay broad through the shoulders. And keep sending breath to any point of discomfort. Now let's release the left foot and shift the hips back for half Hanumanasana. We'll flex the right foot and actively draw the right hip back as you settle into the fold. Now let's rise up and pivot on the left knee to face the long edge of the mat, rooting through the right foot. We'll rock back and forth to loosen up the hip joint and the groin. we'll inhale to sit up tall and windmill the arms into gate pose. Maybe gazing under the left tricep. Find some new length in the left side body. Now let's come down and face the top of the mat. We'll settle into lizard pose next, choosing whatever modification or variation serves you best. Your body might not want the same angle or the same depth on both sides, and that's perfectly fine. Breathe deeply and let the hips tell you what they want. If you're on the forearms, let's come up to hands. And we'll step right into three-legged dog, sending the right leg high for one inhale. And exhale to lower, landing in down dog. We'll get centered here. And then lift the left leg. This time stacking the hip and bending the knee. Staying long through both shoulders. Now we'll draw this knee forward for pigeon pose. The left knee landing behind the wrist and ankle by the right wrist. Let's keep the hips square as we scoot the right leg back and root through fingertips so we can stay upright for a little bit, shining the heart up with a deep, expansive inhale. If you feel your hips tilting at all, go ahead and tuck a blanket or a block underneath before folding over the left leg. It's perfectly fine to stay right here and breathe into the stretch. But if you want even more for that hip, you might walk your hands over towards that left ankle so your torso is pointing to the top right corner of the mat. Let your head be heavy. Find some release. Let's come back to center and rise up. Tuck the right toes and push back to three-legged dog. We'll stack the left hip and bend the knee. Maybe you'll want to flip your dog, landing in wild thing just for one big breath. Exhale your way back to downward facing dog, rooting both feet. Now we'll sweep the right leg up, stacking that hip to find a stretch for the psoas and the hip flexors. Inhale to draw that knee forward for pigeon pose. Settling into an upright version first to get the hips nice and square. Inhale to shine your heart up and roll your shoulders back. And keep sipping on that breath as you fold forward. Option 2, bring in some props to support the hips. You might also want to walk the upper body over to the left for an even deeper hip stretch. Find your depth and settle in. Let's inhale to rise up and plant hands at the top of the mat. We'll step right into three-legged dog, stacking the right hip. Option 2, flip your dog for a brief wild thing. pushing the hips high, expanding through the rib cage. Then exhale your way back to down dog. And once you land, we'll inhale forward to high plank, tucking the tailbone. Exhale through chaturanga. And inhale to cobra or upward dog. Exhale to roll over the toes, back to downward dog. And from here, we'll go ahead and drop the knees, sinking into child's pose. And then roll slowly into an upright seat. Let's grab a prop, a blanket, cushion, block, whatever you need. We just want to get some height under the seat for some folds here. So first, let's draw soles of feet together and send the knees wide for diamond shape, a little looser than cobbler's pose. Sitting on a prop like this can really help you to spill the pelvic bowl forward first, finding some length in the low back as you fold. I also like to press my triceps into my shins to get an even deeper release for the back. Let's inhale to sit back up and extend the legs for a wide-legged forward fold. Again, pausing to lengthen the spine before reaching your full depth. This pose can really be a test of patience. The inner legs really don't like to be pushed open too quickly when they're tight, so take your time here. Let your breath carve new pockets of space inside, and trust in the body's wisdom. When it says ease up, listen. Now let's walk the hands back in, sit up, and move your prop aside. Find your way to a reclined position. We'll extend the left leg long and then hug the right knee into the ribs. Then send that knee wide to the right, inhaling. With an exhale, we'll draw the knee across the torso and over to the left for an easy twist, rooting both shoulder blades to the mat. Stay here if it feels good, or you might straighten the right leg, catching the outer edge of that foot with your left hand, finding a deeper opening for the hamstrings and the lower right flank. Let's release and roll back to center. We'll switch legs now, hugging the left knee into the chest first. Now send that left knee wide to the side, letting the left hand gently anchor it down. Next, we'll find a twist, exhaling to find some release in the low back. You can keep that left knee bent, or you might straighten the left leg for a deeper stretch. Relax into the pose and start to release breath control as we head to the end of our practice. Releasing the twist, let's come back to center. And we'll cross the right leg over left for reclined shoelace pose, reaching to catch the outer edges of both feet. You can make this active at the core by squeezing the knee to nose, or release your head back for a more passive stretch. Let's switch legs now, crossing the left knee over right, sending the ankles wide. You choose if you'd like to touch the knee to nose or relax your head on the mat. Now let's release and plant feet on the outer edges of the mat so bent knees can fall in towards each other. Press your sacrum into the mat for a breath cycle. And then we'll go ahead and settle into our final resting pose for Shavasana. You might take the legs back to diamond shape or extend them long, spreading out. Close your eyes. Let your palms lie open, ready to let go and also to receive. Settle in here, and I'll wake you in just a minute. We'll start to wake the body back up slowly by wiggling toes and fingers, maybe rolling ankles. You can send the arms overhead for a full body stretch. Now roll to one side and curl up in a ball, resting. When you're ready, let's push ourselves up to find a comfortable seat. We'll close our practice with a few moments of meditation on gratitude. Close your eyes and bow your head in thanks for this body, this breath, and this practice. I want to thank you so much for practicing with me today. I really hope you enjoyed this flow. Maybe this was enough for you today, but if not, you're really nicely prepped for splits practices, inversions, deep hip openers, maybe something more active like a hike or a run. Whatever you choose, keep trusting in your body's wisdom. Enjoy whatever freedom you can find. And be good to yourself. Namaste. See you next time.